you can send your questions in, and Anne will tally them and give me the link. Let's see, Mary Ellen's here from Maryland. Hi, Mary Ellen. Thank you so much for being the first to say hello. So for everyone, please let me know where you're coming from. It's always great to see. And Mary is here from Tacoma, Washington. Oh, I love Tacoma. It's a great area. I was up there a couple of weeks ago and was able to have king salmon, and there's no salmon in the world like the Pacific Northwest, and I missed it. Ma is here, Ma-O from Raleigh. Hello, hello. Nice to see that you're here. It's really great to see when people are coming from around the world. It always makes me happy.
All right, Dr. Tom, we are live on all platforms.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, hello. It's Tuesday, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, midnight here in Dublin. I'm in Dublin tonight, 1 a.m. in London and most of Europe, 9 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, 11 a.m. Wednesday morning in New Zealand, and it's Facebook Live. And hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I am thrilled to see that Michelle is here. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Dr. Tom.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Oh, great. So this is our monthly Q&A for Michelle and I, and we will field your questions and do our best to give you some guidance on how to think about the problems that are bothering you and hopefully give you some direction. So let's see here if I can open my screen more and get up to, let's see, the questions. Michelle, can you see the questions or the question box?
You ready for me to start reading?
Please.
This is an anonymous question that was posted on Zoom. How is toxicity tied to inflammatory arthritis, and what are some ways one can treat or heal the body?
Well,
good one to
well,
start
that's
off with.
great.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start. So, National Institute of Health tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death in the world today, meaning what's likely to take you down, is a chronic inflammatory disease. Now, if you think about the words, okay, disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, brain dysfunction, Alzheimer's, that's the disease. Inflammatory means there's inflammation going on that's affected that particular tissue. And chronic means it's been going on for a long time. And if any of you have read my books or seen Michelle and I in the past, you know that these chronic inflammatory diseases take years of developing before you ever have a symptom. That's a critical thing to understand. When you start getting arthritis, you've had a problem for years. By definition, you've had a problem for years, meaning the joints have been inflamed, causing damage to that specific tissue where the inflammation is accumulating. If you pull at a chain, the chain always breaks at the weakest link, always. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your genetic weak link is. Well, there's two things that determine the weak link. It's your genetics, and it's how you've lived your life. The fancy word for that is antecedents. It just means how you've lived your life. For example, if you eat tuna fish a couple, 3 times a week, no doubt you've got mercury poisoning. That's an antecedent. That's how you've lived your life. You've been exposed to too much mercury, right? So it's antecedents and genetics that determine where the chronic inflammation is going to accumulate the damage first, or most obviously, where the symptoms appear first. Nobody gets just one disease. You get diagnosed with a primary disease, but you've got other things going on. They just haven't caused as much discomfort and sent you to the doctor as whatever your primary is. So it's never solo, ever. There's always more than one. So chronic inflammatory diseases are what make us sick and eventually what take us down. So how does toxicity come into that? Well, where does the inflammation come from? That's the million-dollar question that each one of us has to ask. What am I doing to cause this inflammation in my life? And it comes from a few sources. It comes from the outside world, and it comes from the inside world. Now, from the outside world, it means it's what you're being exposed to. And the most common source of inflammatory triggers is what's on the end of your fork. That's most common. But it's also what you're breathing. We know that 60 to 65% of all Alzheimer's is called inhalation Alzheimer's. It's what you're breathing that goes straight up to the brain and causes inflammation in the memory center of the brain, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. And the studies show us that this goes on for 25 to 30 years before you get symptoms. It's called the prodromal period, another great Scrabble word, but it just means before symptoms. And so it's going on for decades of you being exposed to some environmental trigger, which causes inflammation. Wherever the weak link in your chain is, it accumulates, and eventually you start getting symptoms where that weak link in the chain is. In this question, it's your joints, it's arthritis. You could ask the same question for your brain or for diabetes or for autoimmune diseases. It doesn't matter. The mechanism is the same. So it's a great question, because how do heavy metals play into all this? It's one of the environmental triggers that causes inflammation in your body, and the heavy metals accumulate in your body, and they accumulate for years and years. That's what we sent out an announcement for today's event, and we talked about my son when he was diagnosed with an anemia that just didn't make any sense to me. He was 5 years old, and we found out it was from mercury poisoning, because his treat back in the early, well, let's see, it would have been about 1988, 89. His treat was a Subway tuna fish sandwich. And when he worked really hard at doing something, or he did good in school, or whatever it was that he wanted, or we wanted to give him a reward, he wanted a Subway tuna fish sandwich. So he could ride his bicycle up to the corner, and I'd walk behind him, and there was a Subway right there, and he'd get his tuna fish sandwich, and he loved it. Well, that was like once a week or so, something like that, maybe twice a week. And the result was he accumulated mercury, which caused his anemia. And when we got the mercury out of his body, the anemia went away. So that was the environmental trigger for him, the heavy metal that caused the inflammation that affected his body's ability to make red blood cells that caused his anemia. Michelle, anything you want to add to that one?
I'm just cringing at the mercury with a side of gluten.
Yes. Right.
It certainly wasn't Ventresca tuna.
Correct.
Vital
That's correct.
choice. I'm sure the team can post that, but that's one of my favorites. It's so
Mine
great
too.
because it's a pop top. I was going to have one here, but I consider it like fast food, and I typically always have a can in my purse. So if I'm out and about, I can usually get some salad or veggie or something safe. But that's a really healthy form of protein when I don't even know, you don't always know if it's a healthy protein when you're out and about. But I completely agree. And what we have on the end of our fork, but also I'm thinking like how toxic stress and mindset, stinking thinking are.
Really good,
And I
really
just
good, yeah.
saw a post by a functional medicine practitioner that said there's a connection between 95% of illnesses of stress and mindset. And I would venture it's probably 100%, but we'll stick with the 95. And that's so important. But just when we think about all the toxins, I think when I was in high school, I loved to go to the mall with my girlfriends, and we'd go to those stores that have all the lotions that smell pretty. And we'd be like, oh, smell this, and think of all those toxins and those products that are just going right to your brain. So it's what
Right.
we put on our skin in our mouth. It's what's on the bottom of our shoes that we track into our house. It's what we wash our clothes in. So all of those are things that we have control over.
Well, we actually didn't know that those things were toxic. I mean, people just didn't know that, when you were a high school kid and you go into the mall and you're doing the perfumes, and I'd go into this large department stores, and I'd try the men's cologne, and I'd put a squirt here and put a squirt there. And, it was silly, but we didn't know that stuff can be really toxic depending on how it's made. Now we know. There's no question that these chemical exposures, Michelle, you referenced the numbers before, and an average day, what the number of different chemicals are that a woman exposes herself to on her body. Do you remember what that number was?
I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's shocking.
Yeah, it was something like 100 and some different chemicals before a woman leaves a house in the morning. From the shampoo to the conditioner to the rouge to the lipstick to the eyeshadow, and guys, it was like 60 different chemicals. Just look at your soap. Look at all the ingredients in the soap, or in your shaving cream, or in your shampoo. How many ingredients are in that? And that stuff, so much of it is very highly toxic. And we recommend people go to the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. And I request everyone, please support those people. They have been working tirelessly for decades for us to tell us which suntan lotions are the safest and which ones are not, and what mosquito repellents are the safest and which ones are not, and they've got no agenda. They're not politically oriented. They're a nonprofit. And you go there, and we send everybody there to get the list of the dirty dozen, meaning if you can't eat organic food, get the EWG list of the dirty dozen. These are the ones you absolutely stay away from if they're not organic. And then get their list of the clean 15. These are the ones that, they've got less toxic chemicals. So if you can't do organic, these are the foods to focus on for you and your family. Michelle, would you explain what Ventresca is? You referenced it as a snack, but not what it was.
Yes, so it is a baby tuna belly, and it's tested to make sure that it has very, very low levels of mercury. It's the only type of tuna that I will eat, and it literally melts in your mouth.
It's delicious.
It's so delicious. It's a little bit on the pricier side, but when you think of all those omega fats and everything, you're getting such a clean source. It often sells out, so it's often not available, but I'm sure that the team can post the link, and I can look at it here.
Right. And Ventresca, a can of this tuna fish, has 7,000 milligrams of omega-3s, the good fats for your brain, your cardiovascular system. 7,000. That's 7 grams. And so for a child, that is 1 can of tuna fish for a week gives that child all of the good fats for their brain that they need, because their brain's going, like Gio now. We give the omega fats, the good fats, to Marzi in higher doses because he's still breastfeeding, but he's starting to like tuna fish. So he's getting a little Ventresca now once in a while, and we're not giving him a whole can, but as much as he eats, we give it to him. So here's the Ventresca, and that is a 6 cans. So it's just over, I think it's $11 a can, which is a bit pricey, but it's extremely rare. You can't find anyone that focuses on the belly of the baby tuna. Salmon fishermen get tuna caught in their nets, and the baby tuna, for some reason, they get caught in the nets, and they've always just thrown them away. They just throw them back because they can't do anything. They're salmon fishermen. But the founder of Vital Choice realized that, wait a minute, that's probably a really good fish. And he came up with the way of commercially getting it and getting the meat and putting it in the cans and making sure it's sterile and all of that. And that was the beginning of Ventresca. And it is the best. And 1 can a week is all your child needs, or an adult actually, all an adult needs for the good fats called the omega-3s for an entire week. Eat a can of tuna fish once a week and you're covered. So that's 1 less bottle of vitamins that you have to buy, which will reduce the cost of the Ventresca for you, right?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, next up is Mary. She's also on Zoom, and she said, I was just listening to a doctor on a docuseries concerning this infamous virus. I'm not going to say the word, and the injection, and it really scared me. So I so wish I did not take it. I had to in order to keep my job as a teacher. He said the vaccine was made from known snake venom, and that vaccinated people can develop serious problems with lungs if ever it's used in chemical warfare. What do we do to rid our bodies of this vaccine?
That's a really good question that I personally am putting a lot of time into right now. And the answer is I haven't seen anything that talks about once you start making the antibodies to that spike protein, your body has been instructed to do that. By receiving the vaccine. They inject a poison into you, and then your body says, well, wait a minute, I better fight that poison. So you start making antibodies to the spike protein of that virus. That's the purpose of vaccines. And in this case, it was not researched, and it was come through on an emergency basis. And now we're starting to see the side effects big term. There was a wonderful, wonderful article. Michelle, if you can go to PubMed and pull up Russell Blaylock, Blaylock, and then look for his recent publication. This article just came out by a really well-known nutritional scientist, a PhD, who's been teaching for 25, 30 years, where he summarized what has happened to us in the last couple of years with these vaccines, and what the results are now that they're starting to see. And he did a very good non-political commentary with many, many references as to what happened, how it happened, and what's happening now for so many people. So there it is. And you can see the title there. And you just type in that title on Google and the paper comes right up, and it's free. And this is the National Library of Medicine. And so as you can see on the right side there where it says PMC with the little red square, that's where you can click and download the paper, the PDF. And when you read the paper, you see that it's a very thorough. And then Michelle, if you'll go back up to the top again. So after you've got the paper there, if you go up to the right again where it says PDF and you click on the PDF, that's an easier form to read. And now you download that and there's the paper. And you can see the journal that it was published in, Surgical Neurology International. And it's a non-political, very clear, precise summary of what's happened in the last couple of years so people can get the big picture. And the direct answer to your question, what do you do to get this stuff out of your body? At this point, I'm not really sure. I'm making some recommendations, but I don't have any evidence that it's going to work. But one of the things I'm recommending to people who want to do something is to take pretty high doses of wobenzime. That's a proteolytic enzyme that acts like Pac-Man in your body. It goes, if you ever played Pac-Man, that's exactly what wobenzime does, and it gets rid of the crud in your bloodstream. And these antibodies, I know that wobenzime works with some antibodies, and we just don't know about this one, but it's not going to hurt you. And for an adult, I would say you take at least 5 of these 2 or 3 times a day and do it for a couple of months. Very safe. There's no contraindications to doing it. And is going to have a lot of benefit anyway for debris that's in your bloodstream or collecting on your blood vessel walls. And I got a scare recently. I did a blood test for myself, just a standard, and I did a comprehensive cardiovascular profile, and it came back just terrible, just absolutely terrible. And I looked, and I don't get scared very often, but I got scared. And, I'm in Costa Rica now, so I had to search to find where to get the service, but I had a calcium score done, which is just a simple CAT scan. It took 10 minutes, costs about $300, I think, to do. And what it does is it tells you how plugged up are your pipes in your heart. How plugged up are they? How much calcium is lining your blood vessels? And I came back with the calcification level of a 25-year-old. So I said, well, that's good. Okay, so I got a little calcification, not much, but I've got a little. So I'm going to clean it up anyway. I'm going to clean that out. And in 6 months to a year, I'll do the calcium score again. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking Wobenzym every day, and I take 10 of them 2 or 3 times a day. Should be 3, but sometimes I don't remember. So they're very safe to take. And I'm using it for the Pac-Men to clean my blood vessels, along with a number of other things. I'm not messing around with this. My dad died of a sudden massive coronary a number of years ago, so I'm just not messing around with this. So they're safe to take, and they may help. We'll know more as this progresses in the future, unfortunately, but as more people get sick, and we will have some biomarkers that we will be following for them. But at this point, that's what I'd say. Michelle, is there anything else you would add to that besides Wobenzym to try to deal with the damage from the vaccines?
Yes, I was just shared this, and so I'm happy to share the link because I'm a big fan of Frontline Doctors. I think they've done some really great things, and I didn't realize that they had an I Recover post-vaccine treatment.
Uh-huh.
So let me put this in the chat, and the team can share it on the various platforms. But not all of these are going to apply to everyone. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Some people are not going to do well with intermittent fasting. If you have blood sugar dysregulation, that's going to be a disaster for you. So, you got to be smart when you're looking through these recommendations. Ivermectin, I've seen amazing things with that treatment. It's a prescription, so you have to have somebody who's able to prescribe it. I think that they probably have a link here to help with that. I've seen amazing results with low dose naltrexone, also a prescription. It's used off label, but it can reduce inflammation dramatically and help with many different chronic illnesses. Melatonin has been getting a lot of press during this whole pandemic. Not it's going to be appropriate to take aspirin, but vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin K, quercetin, those are things that are pretty easy to access and probably not really a downside to take.
I would agree with all of those that they may be helpful. Great to put them in there. I haven't seen any evidence that they absolutely do help to reduce the number of antibodies, but this will do no harm. The only one that I would question is the aspirin. Taking a single aspirin will cause intestinal permeability, the leaky gut. Papers came out in New England Journal of Medicine on that a number of years ago. So I'm not sure. If they're looking for the anti-inflammatory effect of aspirin, I can understand that. But I'm not sure I would recommend that one. But the rest of it, I agree with all of it. Diane answered 168 chemicals. Thank you, Diane, for that. And then Diane wrote, sorry, EWG is not all good anymore. They get money put in their pocket too. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you. But at this point, I don't know that much about the downside of EWG, and I think there's still a great, as far as I know, a good consumer education site. And what this suggests is that maybe they're not quite as on the up and up as they once were. And I just don't know. But I would still recommend that you check them out as a source of information.
Mhm. It looks like there was 2 pages to that. This was the PDF, and I looked quickly to find it online. So I'm not actually familiar with this product. Do you know what that is?
Nigella sativa, no, I don't. It sounds like an herb, but I don't know.
Yeah, probiotics, magnesium, omega-3. I had amazing results with vitamin C when I had COVID. It was dramatic. It was dramatic for my dad. We saw him like turn around in the 2 hours while he was having that. So if you have, well, he was having the IV, but if you have access to that, somebody that can do that in your area, that can be really helpful.
Great. Thank you
Okay.
for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Next question is from Terry on Zoom. Would sodium alginate be a good binder to detox mercury? How is it taken?
It's helpful. It's helpful. It's not on the top of the list. How is it taken? I've not prescribed it. I've seen a couple of papers on it, so I can't say it's not helpful. But I don't have personal experience with it, so I can't give you dosing on it. I just don't know.
Okay, Teresa asked, from Instagram, what's the best way to up my vitamin B12 levels? I'm not eating red meat.
I'll let you start with that one.
I would supplement if I had really low. First, I'd want to test, and you really want your B12, serum B12 to be above 700. If it's below 700, you need to supplement. And if it's really low, I've seen people do injections. I even for a period of time gave them to myself in my behind. It was a little tricky to twist around and do that, but it was worth it. Now, the injections are not all created equal. You want to make sure that it doesn't have parabens. So back to toxicity, there are B12 injections that they stabilize it with paraben, and you don't want to be injecting paraben into your body. So you want to make sure that it's a good source. And then there's a lot of great, probably on the theDr.com website, we could find a good B12 to take. And usually in the morning, it can give people energy if they take it too late in the day. Many of my people say, give me energy any time of the day, but I would take it more in breakfast and really enjoy the energy boost throughout the day.
And there are a few different kinds of vitamin B12. Hydroxycobalamin is a water soluble. The less expensive one is methylcobalamin. That also can be helpful. But many people have a methylation problem, and so hydroxycobalamin is absorbed a little bit easier. So that might be, for some people, it could make a difference on the effectiveness of the product if you're using hydroxy versus methylcobalamin. And I also did B12 shots at some point in my life. I'd forgotten all about that because where was, oh yes, my gosh, I was, that was in they even had injections back in 1984, right? So I did the same injections on the backside and just pop and shot them in there because I thought, was reading about it and I thought I'd try it. And I tried it for a couple of weeks and I said, yeah, enough of this. I don't, my B12 levels are fine. And you want a biomarker that tells you how your body is your body getting enough B12? The blood test is a okay test. The blood's just the highway though. Is it getting into the cells? So there is a simple urine test that is quite helpful to identify if you have B12 insufficiency. It's called methylmalonic acid, or MMA, and it's part of a number of different urine tests that can be done. Michelle, do you recall? I know organic acids Does
So
it?
we do have it on the functional blood chemistry.
Great.
It is right here, methylmalonic acid. So you can do it in a blood test, and this panel is amazing to really get a big picture. So I really like that you have both B12, folate, and also methylmalonic acid to see if you're utilizing the B12 and that you have access to. It's also available on the Great Plains organic acid. So if we get there really quickly, Great Plains.
So while she's looking for that, having enough of a substance on the highway in your bloodstream is good, essential, but that it gets into your cells and your cells are using it properly is most important. And that's where the MMA, the methylmalonic acid, comes in. It's a simple test, but it'll tell you, because many people have adequate amounts of B12, sometimes even high levels on a blood test, but their MMA is low, meaning they're not utilizing it well. And so you have to find out what part of their organic chemistry is not utilizing B12, and that's where the organic acids test comes in.
Right. And it's never as easy as just shotgunning supplements. I mean,
Right.
if somebody has low homocysteine, likely indicating that they're over methylating, taking methylcobalamin could drive that even further. But there's about 40% of the population that don't optimally methylate. And so they may need the methylated form, or maybe they're going to do better with adenosylcobalamin, which is kind of the mid converting range. So it's, I wish that it was as simple as just going to the store and getting a B12, but it's never seems to be that easy, right?
Right, it doesn't, especially for B12. And it's a discussion we've had many times over the years with vegetarians for people who don't want to eat red meat. How do I get enough B12? And that's when supplements are most important.
Okay, this is from David, and he's on Instagram, and he says, do you think that the MRT LEAP mediator release test is reliable to find food sensitivities?
The bottom line is do 2 tests with different names. So if it's a blood test, you do a blood draw with 2 tubes out of the same blood draw, but different names, and send it to the lab in different containers. And that's double the expense, but I challenge doctors to do this all the time. I'm in Dublin now, and we'll be doing a talk here on Saturday, and then we go to Rome and then to London. So 1 talk in Rome, 3 in London, and I'll challenge them all. I said, do you think your testing is accurate? And most doctors just don't think about it. They've accepted that, well, of course, it's a blood test a hospital does, right? And it's so very common because they're not laboratory scientists. They're clinicians, they're doctors and specialists and whatever they do. And so I just try this. Draw 2 tubes out of the same blood draw, label them with different names. One is the patient's name, the other is Joe Smith. You pay for Joe Smith's blood test. And when the results come back, look at them side by side. And you'll be shocked as to the variation between, sometimes they're nowhere near even similar, let alone close to identical. And I did that over the years a number of times and got so disappointed. I really didn't know what to tell the patient. Should I use the one that says they have a problem or the one that says they don't? Because I've got 2 different tests here from the same blood. And then I did that a couple of times with the Zoomer tests when they came out in 2016, and they're always right on the money. So I can't answer your question specifically. The laboratories that offer tests that have been around for a number of years speak very highly about their tests. And now the bottom line is really clear. It's black and white, the sensitivity and specificity. And most representatives of the laboratories don't know the answers to those questions. What's the sensitivity and specificity for this test? They don't know. Well, they're really accurate. I said, I understand, but what's the sensitivity? Well, I don't know. Talk to the medical director of the lab and find out. and then they get back to you and they give you a bunch of gobbledygook often, because they don't want to tell you that it's in the 60s or 70s, maybe the low 80%, which means it's wrong 2 to 4 out of 10 times, just wrong. And, and that was the best technology that was available in 1980, 1990, 2000. But now we have very, very sensitive, and Mayo Clinic was the group that published the papers that introduced that to this laboratory technology to us back in 2016. Michelle found the paper and she sent it to me, and we both did, and oh my God, this is so wonderful, right? And then I went up to visit the lab, and that's why we've been talking about the Zoomers for the last 6 years now, is because they're right on the money every time. Michelle, anything you want to add to that particular test?
Yes, so I've done plenty of MRT interps, and if you've done an MRT, I think, follow it for 3 to 6 months and get the benefits of it, because it is indicating, I don't know how reliable it is for you because I haven't asked them for their sensitivity and specificity, but if somebody brings that test to me, and I'll happily interpret it. I think the biggest failure with that test is it tests only wheat. And so wheat Zoomer is going to test so many different peptides. And if you aren't reacting to like the whole protein structure of wheat, you may still be reacting to different peptides. So people can continue eating wheat thinking they don't have a problem with it. And so that's, a problem that I have with that test. I thought it was interesting. I haven't had penicillin. I had it like at 10 months old, and I had a really severe reaction, and yet it still showed up on that test. So there was some like memory in my body. So I'm sure that there's some benefit to it. I think one of the key takeaways is they tell people to go on a 3-day rotation diet. And I think we all should be doing that anyway. The American Gut Project did a study, and they said the healthiest people were eating 30 or more different plant-based foods, and the unhealthiest 10 or less. And I think it's human nature, Dr. Tom, right? That we all just have our 10 favorite foods that we eat on repeat. Right. We go to the grocery store, we get broccoli and bananas, and when we run out, we get more broccoli and bananas. So I really like that aspect of the test, is it kind of creates a 3-day rotation diet, but we can all do that. We can all create that. Okay, this is from Denise. And she says, what's the best way to get mercury out of the body? What's the best test for heavy metals and other toxins? Thank you.
Great question. Before I answer that question, Marianne wrote in and she said they did get bought by a pharmaceutical company. So if you're talking about EWG, that's an OMG to me. So if that's the case, thank you for sharing that, Marianne. So caution now is warranted with EWG and their recommendations. Well, yeah, I didn't know that. And
I thought it was still donation based.
So everyone check for yourself, maybe just Google environmental working group. Did they sell to a pharmaceutical company or something like that? See what you find. Okay, heavy metal testing. There are 3 types of ways to check for heavy metals in your body: hair analysis, blood test, and urine test. The hair analysis, depending on the lab, if it's a good lab, it's accurate for you. You can only use 2 inches of hair from, 1 inch of hair from the nape of the neck, and 1 inch of hair. So if your hair is longer, you cut it at the nape of the neck, and then you just cut it 1 inch in and throw the rest of it away. And you don't need too much, but you need enough. Because 1 inch of hair is about 2 months worth of growth. And after that, there's too much shampoo interference and bleaching of the hair to get an accurate representation of what's in the hair. It gets washed out after a couple of months of being on your scalp. So that's why you only use 1 inch of hair from the nape of the neck. But whatever's in your bloodstream in terms of minerals and metals will be the raw material that makes up the new hair follicles. And so it's an accurate test, if it's a good lab, for what you've been exposed to in the last 2 months. That's important to know. And it's useful when someone comes back with another test, doing a hair analysis to see is your poisoning something you're being exposed to now on a regular basis? And the way you can tell is you do the hair analysis. And if it's same results in the hair, then you know you're being exposed to it right now. So it might be you live in an area where that's happening, or something you're eating, like the tuna example that we gave you earlier. So the first method is hair. The second method is blood. And the blood, it's the only methodology endorsed by the government to identify heavy metals. But your body flushes everything it can out of your bloodstream to keep it away from the brain. So if you have lead in your bloodstream or mercury in your bloodstream, the brain says, get that stuff away from me. And it gets thrown into storage. And lead goes into the bones and into the brain, and mercury goes into the brain and deep into the tissue. Arsenic goes into the kidneys and other tissues. So it gets pushed out of the bloodstream and into storage. If you can't detox it and get rid of it, it gets pushed out into fat cells, bone cells, some brain cells. Or your body's trying its best to keep it away from the brain, but sometimes you can't. And so the bloodstream is pretty accurate for what you've been exposed to for the last 2 months. Last 2 weeks. After something's been in your bloodstream for a couple of weeks, and they followed this, these kids in Flint, Michigan, that were exposed to so much lead. They followed and see, yes, they had high blood levels, and then they were checking them to see, was it coming out in the urine? And it wasn't coming out in the urine. But then the blood cleared up in 2 to 4 weeks. It wasn't as bad. Where did it go? Well, it went into storage. If it didn't come out in the urine, it went into storage, meaning their bones. And that's a reason why postmenopausal women have such an acceleration of brain fog as they go through a change of life, is because if they're not making enough estrogen, when women go through a change of life, the ovaries start to shut down. They've done their job. And it's the job of the adrenal glands to make about 1/10 of the estrogen that the ovaries used to make, because women need a little estrogen for the rest of their lives, for their brains and their cardiovascular system. And if you don't have enough estrogen, if the adrenals aren't doing the job for one reason or another, then one of the side effects of not having enough estrogen after going through a change of life is that your bones start breaking down. You get osteoporosis. First, it's called osteopenia, meaning your bones are heading towards osteoporosis. And then you finally get there, and now it's osteoporosis. Well, when your bone cells start breaking down, the lead that's been stored in the bones for many, many years starts to come out into the bloodstream. And now that goes into the brain, because it's on the highway. It's in the bloodstream, it's on the highway, and it gets into the brain. Now here comes more brain fog. That's why brain fog can be accelerated in postmenopausal women. Because of that. So blood is accurate for what's been happening for the last 2 weeks, exposure for 2 weeks, hair for the last 2 months. The third way is a urine test. And the urine test, you collect the urine for 24 hours, but we have you do chelating agents first. These are substances that act like sponges to pull the metals out of storage and into your bloodstream. And if they're in the bloodstream, the kidneys will filter it. And so it comes out in the urine. So that is a method that I've endorsed for so many years. And you really start to see some jaw-dropping numbers when you give chelating agents beforehand. I just did this test myself about a week and a half. Actually, it went out. It was sent off to the lab about 10 days ago. So I'll find out. And I did an IV of the chelation materials to pull this stuff out, and then collected my urine for 24 hours afterwards, and then took a sample of that and sent it off. Because I think I've probably got some heavy metals that caused some of those blood test results that I saw. So we'll see. We'll see. And then there's another method that Michelle's more familiar with. Michelle, do you want to talk about the method from Quicksilver?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the really key thing with the urine and the chelating is you always want to do a neural zoomer first. And it's actually the neural zoomer plus. And you want to make sure that you don't have any blood-brain barrier permeability, or you can drive those metals with the chelating agents right into the brain. So on the sample test, this person has blood-brain barrier permeability right here and right here. So they would want to heal that first before they did any chelating. Now, there are some natural ways that aren't typically as effective as chelating that can be helpful to pull it out, but you just really want to do this first. Okay, so here's the Quicksilver. And one of the reasons I like it so much is that you don't have to use chelation, and it uses a combination of urine, blood, and hair. So you get a really nice picture. You also, they also test for different nutrient elements, so calcium, copper, lithium. So these minerals that can be key in helping us to detox, or maybe low levels make it more likely that we're going to store these toxic metals. So I like this test. It's on the theDr.com website. Let me put both of those links in the chat so that everyone has access. But I think this is a really nice broad spectrum look. But if you're going to do any kind of chelation, do this test first.
Really good points. Really good points. We're actually going after our talk in Rome. We're going to the Swiss Mountain Clinic because I just found out about 6 weeks ago that they teamed up with Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, one of the greats in the field, and they now have a process, the only known process to pull toxins out of the brain, including heavy metals, is called inosphoresis. And it's like a kidney dialysis, but it's blood dialysis that pulls stuff out of your brain. And so we're going there to do that. So I need to do that. Let's go for that one. Let's get this as cleaned up as much as we can. So
yeah,
that
it'll be
would
nice
be
when
great.
that's more readily available, but
Yes.
couldn't be a
Yes.
better location to have it done.
Yes,
The
true.
pictures just look incredible.
It is a health haven on earth. And I've said this many times that the people, the owners and the doctors there are angels in human form. They truly are. It's a remarkable healing experience to go there. And we have a patient right now who, a doctor who was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I said to him, you need to go to Swiss Mountain Clinic, spend 3 weeks there, get this stuff out of you. You don't have time to put your toe in the water and do a little of this and little of that, because you've got a brain degeneration disease that's aggressive and nonstop. And so to put the brakes on that, we have to do something aggressive to turn it around. And now that we have inosphoresis available to us, it's a pretty new technology that was only in Germany. And now it's available. So it's something that, for any of you who have wondered what to do, just go to the Swiss Mountain Clinic website and you can see the interview on the home page of a television broadcaster with Dr. Klinghardt and Dr. Weichel. You'll see them both there, and it's impressive. So it was impressive enough to where I said to Marcy, we're going to Swiss Mountain Clinic. She said, oh, okay, great. Let's go.
I'm sure that was not a hard sell.
That was not a hard sell.
Dubbed, so I don't know if they're speaking in German or what language, but it's
No,
dubbed.
it's English.
Well, it's dubbed over in English, so it's a little bit of an effort to pay attention.
Oh, that's right.
But it's still
That's right.
It's definitely worth watching. Okay, next question comes from YouTube, and this is Dr. Sue Minsky, and she said, please recommend heavy metal detox strategies to avoid releasing heavy metals too quickly. Clear drop has been suggested. I'm not familiar with clear drop, are you?
Neither am I. And you, Michelle's comment earlier about doing the NeuroZoomer Plus first is really important. That's a main concern about detoxing metals too quickly, is you don't want to mobilize them, have them circulate and get into the brain. So you want to make sure that your blood-brain barrier is secure. That's a first step. And then it's a clinical decision as to how aggressive you get with it. And in my opinion, I want them out. I want them out in as quick a period as I can, realistically get them out. And our protocols usually go for somewhere around 10 sessions. So it's 3 days on of chelating this stuff out, and then 11 days off. So Mrs. Patient, on your, did you have a calendar on the wall? Yes, okay. Circle Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday on the calendar. And then go down 2 weeks, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then go down 2 weeks, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Go down 2 weeks, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And do that 10 times. And in the type of testing that I have done for years, we've found that it takes about 10 sessions of doing that before a test will come back negative, a follow-up test. So that's going to be somewhere around 5 months, 5 to 6 months of detox protocols to get this stuff out. It doesn't come out quickly. You don't want to do something aggressive every day. You want to make sure that your detox pathways are functioning well, that you've got adequate glutathione levels. And so a genomic test for detox is an excellent idea beforehand. So, and then checking to see what is a patient's glutathione levels and what about the glutathione peroxidase. And so make sure that they've got the equipment to protect themselves as you're pulling the heavy metals out. If they don't, you have to supplement first with adequate amounts of supplementation to get their glutathione levels up. And well, how do you know? You retest. That's the only way. So it might take 2 months before you ever start pulling any heavy metals out as you're building up glutathione. And you do that with N-acetylcysteine, alpha lipoic acid, coenzyme Q10. There's a number of substances that help to raise glutathione levels. Whey protein, good quality whey protein is excellent to increase glutathione levels. But so you want to make sure that they have the capability of protecting themselves as you start mobilizing this. Michelle, anything you want to add to that?
I make sure they don't have whey antibodies on the dairy zoomer.
Right.
I'm like listening to this and I'm thinking, I wish that this was all easier and then everyone would be healthy. We'd have to find new passions. I guess we could do that, Dr. Tom. I mean, this, you can tell how nerdy and excited we get about all of this, but it's complicated, right? I mean, you don't want to go in with guns blazing if you have high liver enzymes and low glutathione to just detox. We used to call it like a healing crisis, and now we just know it's a crisis. It's just your liver is screaming, stop, I can't detoxify as quickly as you're asking me. And then if you're like dumping toxins and your body can't get rid of them, then they're recirculating and storing in other areas. So you definitely want to work with somebody who's really knowledgeable about this and can go at a rate that your body can handle. My big saying that I usually say with detox is low and slow. Let's start low and go slowly. And I know that most people that are sick don't want to. They're like, I want to get well tomorrow.
Right. I want to get well tomorrow.
Go in there and do this, but you can end up bedridden.
Right. That's why at Swiss Mountain Clinic, everyone who comes for the first time, their first week there is always the same. It's to treat the queen. They refer to it as the queen, and that is the liver.
Uh-oh.
Organism of the body.
You froze for a second. Good, you're back.
Oh, okay, okay, good. So I'll repeat myself. I don't know where it froze. At Swiss Mountain Clinic, everyone who comes for their first week, it's always the same, always, and that is to take care of the queen, and the queen is the liver. So you have to clean your liver first so that you then can take these toxins that will be mobilized and efficiently get them out of there, as opposed to recirculating them and having them deposit somewhere else, like back in your brain again.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, this is from Carla on Instagram. Does alpha lipoic acid help in binding toxic metals?
Yes, yes, a little bit. And the main pathway is by increasing glutathione levels.
So many
That's the primary.
benefits to alpha lipoic acid, but that's interesting. That's the primary pathway.
Mhm.
Okay, good to know. JD on Zoom says, how quickly would infrared sauna speed up the detox of heavy metals?
Oh, as soon as you're in the sauna, as soon as you're sweating, every time you sweat. I just pulled down a couple of studies 2 or 3 weeks ago about the amount of heavy metals in sweat from an infrared sauna, that it's an effective tool. It's a component in helping you to detox. And it's one of the long-term protocols to do. One of the reasons we love infrared saunas is that a basic premise at theDr.com is that you don't do spring cleaning once a year anymore. You know, we used to teach once a year, do a spring cleaning, do a detox, do a fast, or, you know, let's just mobilize some of the accumulated toxins you may have and get them out. That's not the case anymore. Detox has to be a way of life, because there are so many poisons and so many toxins we're all being exposed to on a constant basis, that it needs just to be a component of your life, that you keep in mind how you and your family are detoxing the things that you can't avoid being exposed to. And one of them is infrared sauna. It's just excellent as a tool. It's not enough by itself, but it's an excellent tool to help mobilize and get rid of a lot of the toxins, the organophosphates, the chemicals that are accumulating in our bodies, and the heavy metals.
And again, if you're really sick, go in and warm up with a sauna. Go for 5 minutes the first time and then work up from there. You're going to feel like nothing's happening, but those infrared waves are still going to be knocking toxins out. And the last thing you want to do if you're really ill is to go in at the highest temperature, 130 degrees, 160 degrees,
stick it out,
45 minutes, and then spend the next 2 days in bed.
Right.
I don't recommend that.
Right.
Yeah, ease into it.
Michelle, we have a question from Marta. She says, hi, Dr. Tom, do you think we should all be using toothpaste without fluoride? What's your thoughts on that? So
And she
I'll let
says
you
a
take
huge
that.
hug from Portugal. You left out the
Yes.
best part. Thanks,
Oh,
Marta.
thank you. I saw the huge hug, but it stopped. It didn't say where from. Oh, it's Marta. Oh, hi, Marta. Thank you so much. Thank you. Michelle, you take that one.
I have read enough research that I don't use fluoride containing toothpaste, and I do not do fluoride treatments at the dentist.
Right. And instead, what do we do?
I use dental Sidon personally.
Exactly. So if you could talk about dental Sidon for a minute and LS.
Yes, so let me find those in the store really quickly. I love these products, and it's easiest to think about biofilm in the mouth, because biofilm, when it's exposed to oxygen, hardens to plaque. Inside the body, it's anaerobic, so it's more like slime, but that plaque on your teeth is biofilm from bacteria. So we want to get rid of that, because we swallow a liter of saliva a day. We do not want to be swallowing all of these pathogens that can be in our mouth, spirochetes from Lyme disease, all of these different bacteria, strep, and just send it down where it just establishes a nice little rent-free home in your gut, and then can contribute to intestinal permeability, LPS, lipopolysaccharides are leaking out. It's just a recipe for disaster. So let's get it out in the mouth, and it's just a pea-size amount is all you need, and brush thoroughly. And then I use the mouthwash approximately twice a week. But if you're having bleeding when you floss, or there's any periodontal issues, I would use it daily, so maybe twice a day. So here's the Dental Side toothpaste, and usually it's a bit of a sticker shock to see the price, but a bottle lasts me for a really long time, and I know that I'm clearing out all of that. I remember when I taught fourth graders and I had a dentist come in and talk to the students, and he says, "You realize what's happening in your mouth. That bacteria is pooping and peeing." And I'm sorry, that's really crass, but that's a great visual, right? To really want to brush and get it out of your mouth. So Dental Side toothpaste is great. And then the Dental Side LS is 2 pumps, swishing it aggressively. Dr. Tom, have you used it in the shower?
I do.
Okay, great. That's a great time to do it. Or you can just brush your teeth at night and walk around picking up things, putting away dishes, and really try to get it in and around the teeth and the gum line, and then spit all that out. That's just going to be loaded with bacteria and pathogens.
So for 30 years or more now, my go-to product for antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral has been Biocidin. It works so well for most people. It's the one thing we always travel with. When we got on the plane to fly to Europe, a couple of pumps for me, a couple of pumps for Marzi, and Gio opened his mouth and I gave him a pump and he went, and then he just smiled. You know, that first taste was just a little strange for him, but it protects us. And the Dental Side toothpaste is in the same family of antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. And so that's the toothpaste we use now. And Gio loves the taste of it. It's a very pleasant taste. So you do not need fluoride. There is so much literature out there now about the dangers of fluoride. And the chemical industry does its best to try to hide that information, unfortunately. But no, we don't need fluoride. And as Michelle was saying, we swallow 1 liter a day of saliva, 1 liter. And that saliva is full of whatever your oral microbiome is. And there's over 800 species of bacteria in the mouth, and mostly good guys, some bad guys. And if you've got bleeding gums or if you've got bad breath, you likely have too many bad guys and not enough good guys. So you need to be using the Biocidin regularly, and the Dental Side toothpaste, and the Dental Side LS, which is a couple of pumps afterwards. And you'll find in a relatively short period of time, your mouth is feeling so much fresher in the mornings when you wake up, as opposed to being cotton mouth or just dry, or your partner goes, "Oh, go brush your teeth," you know, whatever it should be.
Never good for the self-esteem. I've had so many clients report that they were having to go in every 3 months to get deep cleaning. And now they've been put on the regular 6-month protocol for cleaning, and even had some dentists say, "Are you cheating on me? Are you going and getting your teeth cleaned in between sessions?" Because their mouth was just so much healthier. So I personally, when I use both products, I feel like I just had my teeth cleaned, that amazing fresh mouth filling. So it's definitely worth it to use it.
Annie has a question. I'm desperately trying to get my daughter into a functional doc. She's been so unwell for years with autoimmune and sugar, insulin off the charts. It's hard finding in Australia. Can she video appointment with y'all? Yes, she can, Annie. It's Michelle Ross at info@michelleross.com. And your daughter's in really good hands. And so, yes, she can. I think that's a great idea.
Time zone works really well with Australia, because 4 o'clock my time is morning your time. So it usually works well. I always feel badly for the people that it's like 1 a.m, their time, when we're working together. But yes, I would be honored. Reach out.
Yes.
And we'll do an intro call. And if I don't feel like I'm the right practitioner, I'm happy to refer you to someone who I think would be helpful for her. We never get to all the questions, Dr. Tom. There's always so many more.
Oh, What time is it? Are we?
5:05.
Oh my, oh, it's 5 after. Okay, let's do 2 more questions. This is
Okay,
just
great.
too good.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is from Deb on Zoom. I discovered I'm lectin sensitive and have been avoiding all lectin containing foods. Will the lectin zoomer show specific foods you are sensitive to, so I may add some back in versus avoiding all?
Yes.
So I recommend trialing them back in one at a time, like once every 3 days, and notice how you feel. If you get more joint pain, then maybe that particular food leave out. And then once you've kind of trialed the foods back in, do the lectin zoomer and let's see what you're still reacting to. But I think Dr. Tom, you and I are on the same page on this, that lectins are not evil, right? Like there's so much great research on legumes and they're in the lectin family. And they just can be problematic for some people who have damaged their gut or on the autoimmune spectrum, more in the arthritis family. So all of these blanket statements, like these plant-based foods that are evil, except for gluten, it's really person dependent.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I may have misunderstood the question. I thought the question was something like, do I have to eliminate all lectins or can I have some lectins that I don't test positive for?
So she's been avoiding all of them.
Oh, she's been avoiding all of them.
Yeah. So
Oh, can
I think
she reintroduce some? Got it.
So she's
Got it.
wondering if right now she could do the lectin zoomer and find out, if you're not eating the food, then ideally you shouldn't be making antibodies.
Mhm.
So I would trial it back in, and it's a really great time to really connect with your body, to pay attention to symptoms and really look for bone and joint pain. And, but it can be anything. It can be anxiety, or it can be, more gut pain. So the symptoms are vast. But once you've added those foods back in, and you can look at on the theDr.com website for lectin zoomer, you can look at a sample test and see all the foods that are on there. And if you know that a food's a problem, like corn has lectin, and really we should be eating whole food, and you think there's 200 derivatives of corn in our food supply, and most people are not eating organic corn on the cob or cutting the corn off the cob and eating this whole food. They're eating chips and tortillas and all this processed garbage that's dysregulating blood sugar. So if you're unwell and you're doing this lectin elimination because you aren't well, I wouldn't trial back in corn right now. There's certain foods on there. Tobacco's on there. Obviously don't trial back in tobacco. So it's helpful to work with a practitioner, but you can look at it and just be savvy and trial in the foods that you really miss, that you really want to eat, and then do the test.
Right. Agreed. There was a question, what's the link for medical consultation? That's info@michelleross.com.
Yeah, or you can go to michelleross.com, but the direct info for all of the information is to email info@michelleross.com. And I'd be honored to work with any of you. I just find it such a privilege to get to help people regain their health.
Amen to that. All right, everyone. Once again, it just goes so quick. Thank you so much for being with us. And Michelle, thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Tom.
Yes.
See you in a month.
See you then. And I'll see everyone next